Arnie Sherman, good morning to you.
Good morning, Scott. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm still agitated from our show of last week.
Okay.
About the puppy mills. I don't think we can let it rest. Patty and her crew, Patty Prado, rescued 106 dogs and shut down the Charlo mill. But there are other mills in Montana, and we don't have any legislation. All of those things I was churning them over all week long, and I think that we have some responsibility to track the puppy mills in Montana and call the attention to them that they deserve, richly deserve.
Right.
And in fact, if we have legislators that turned a blind eye to those kinds of activities, we ought to call them on it. I think this is an issue that this show ought to take on as a champion and a continued participation and following up with what Patty has accomplished.
I agree.
You're a pet owner. I'm a pet owner. And we just can't allow that to continue to happen.
I agree with you. I think the reaction we got from our public
was enormous.
Listenership was enormous.
So do we have a pact now from What Do You Know that we're gonna stay on top of it in the next legislative session?
Right. Yes, we should. If Bob Barker, remember his big issue was spaying and neutering?
Right.
Our issue is shutting down any
puppy mills.
If
you go online and look at the pictures of those dogs before and after, it's compelling, and it's a call to action for us.
I agree with you.
That's our pledge.
I'm with you on that.
Good.
I appreciate you taking that on.
So Sunday today is
nice segue.
Yeah, now that I got that off my chest, is Rosh Hashanah.
And for our lay listeners, what is Rosh Hashanah?
Well, it's the Jewish New Year. It's the year 5777. It's a good year to go to the casino and and use the year as a betting call. It's Lucky 7. It's the year 5777, and we're going to commemorate Rosh Hashanah and the New Year by having Rabbi Berry Nash on the show today.
Right, a rabbi that we're both familiar with.
Right, and we're going to ask him what the heck is he doing in Montana, where there basically aren't any Jews. But we'll have that conversation with him. But talking about Rosh Hashanah and the Jewish New Year's,
right?
As you know, there are four big days that we celebrate
for the Jews.
Right, for the small Jewish population among our listeners, and for the general listenership who want to know about the Jewish faith. There are four big holidays. This is one of them, Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
9 days from today, we have Yom Kippur,
right,
which is the Day of Atonement, and unlike not eating for a month or giving up things for Lent, we have one day that we fast and we can be forgive for all of our sins.
A full on, right?
It's a condensed version of you can sin all year and then one day
the Cliff Notes.
Of you don't eat. That's a punishment for Jews. Right. Don't eat for a day, and you atone for all your sins. And then Passover comes along, which everybody knows from watching.
Right.
The Ten Commandments and then Hanukkah. The Jewish Christmas.
Around Christmas.
Yeah, around Christmas.
And Passover's around Easter.
Right. And all of these holidays have one thing in common. Food, right? You can't really celebrate one of our holidays without talking about food, right? Rosh Hashanah, it's like apples and honey, right? That's the thing that kind of drives you to participating in the celebration. Yom Kippur is a fast, and then you get to eat afterwards. You have a meal, and you're supposed to atone for your sins, and then you get rewarded with food.
Right.
And then we have Passover, which you hand out literature. It's one of those holidays where you hand out pamphlets and read for 2.5 hours, and then you get to eat from a Seder plate.
Have we ever celebrated Passover together? We haven't.
No, we have not.
We should, because we do a condensed version.
It's a horrible holiday. You're starving, and you got to wait 2.5 hours.
Ladies
and
and
bring out
this is the real Arnie coming out.
Right, and then they bring out. Then they bring out roots and nothing. You're starving, and they bring out basically nothing to eat. Hard-boiled egg and salt water.
But if they
roots.
Came out with sushi and sashimi,
that would be much better.
And beef, you'd be fat.
And we're going to ask the rabbi about this. Why we can't change the dietary, tradition. And then Hanukkah, you have potato pancakes and brisket, and you get into the real celebration.
And cholesterol.
Yeah, it's a good cholesterol feast. So So that's one of the things that we'll talk a little bit with the rabbi about, and talk a little bit about Jewish humor that ties into the whole thing. I think most of our listeners probably at one time or another have seen what I think is the, visual and interactive representation of the entire Jewish faith, which is Fiddler on the Roof. If anybody's seen Fiddler on the Roof and the story of Tevye and Anatevka, the village, and based on the stories of Sholem Aleichem, that's the whole cultural history of the Jewish people.
I think the more recent crossover of Judaism to the masses was the Black Eyed Peas with their song that they did a couple of years ago, which was a staple at all bar mitzvahs, but also everybody was saying Mazel Tov.
Right. Well,
what song was that again?
A Mazel Tov song.
Right.
But I do have one story to tell, which it sort of also epitomizes the Fiddler on the Roof and the heritage and the things that I guess are culturally imbued in the Jewish faith. A story about the village of Anatevka, which from Fiddler on the Roof, you all know, is very poor.
Right.
And the fiddler, who was overseeing the village, and then you had the milkman, who was who?
Right. I don't know.
Well, the fiddler. The fiddler.
Tevye.
Tevye.
Right. Tevye.
So there's a story about Tevye says, I'm tired of being poor and being in Anatevka, so I'm going to go find the richest Jewish man in the world and see if he can help us out here. So he goes all the way to Paris to visit Rothschild, Baron von Rothschild, who at the time was the richest
not Baron
Jewish person in the world. And he showed up in his house dressed as, Tevye. He had, not very fine clothing. He was a milkman. And he asked to see Baron, Mr. Rothschild, and the manservant came back and said, looked at him, so he was all tattered clothes. He said, I'm sorry, the Baron is busy. And he says, well, tell the Baron I have the secret for eternal life.
Ah.
So that kind of got the attention. And he went back and he said, the Baron has changed his mind. He's happy to come and talk to you. So he goes to see the Baron. The Baron says, you have the secret of eternal life. And Tevye said, yes. He said, well, what's it going to cost me to get the secret of eternal life?
Right.
He said, 100 rubles. And the Baron said, that's not very much money. He said, well, that's the first number that came to my mind. So I'll give 100 rubles. So he says, fine, I'll give you 100 rubles. So he gives him 100 rubles, and the Baron says, so what's the secret to eternal life? And he said, you have to pack up immediately and move from Paris to Anatevka. And the Baron said, why? He said, because no rich person ever died in that village. So it's that sort of sums up the whole history and legacy of the 5,777 years.
Thank God it's a new year. We're going to start off on a new foot. You are listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, proudly presented by Dawn Maddox of Glacier Sotheby's International Realty, our presenting partner. We'll be back right after this. And we are back with our guest.
We're here with Rabbi Berry Nash from Brooklyn, but now living in Missoula, Montana. Good morning, Rabbi. How are you?
Hello, Montana. How are you?
And today being Sunday, by the way, what is tonight?
Tonight, October 2nd, is Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the Jewish year, and it's an unbelievable day, and I wish everyone a happy Shana Tova.
It's 5777, right?
That's right.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
So, and I remember Rosh Hashanah primarily because you get great apples and honey.
Yeah, I just want to point out that you got to make sure that the apples, people can get confused today. Make sure it's not your iPod apple.
Right. You don't want to be pouring honey on your iPod. I understand that.
It'll be an expensive apple.
So Rabbi, you are a Chabad Lubavitcher rabbi.
Correct.
And that sect of Judaism, and we can discuss this during the next 35 minutes, has about 4,000 families like you and Shane and your 3 kids that are around the world doing Jewish missionary work, right?
Jewish work.
Right.
Jewish-friendly work.
How'd you end up in Montana from Brooklyn?
That's a good question, and everyone asks that. Sometimes I get confused with another character. I was walking in Walmart, one of my first trips, And a 10-year-old girl, she might be listening now, so I hope I don't embarrass her. A 10-year-old girl was looking at me strangely, like, who is this? And she looks at her mother and then back at me and says, hey, Mom, look, it's Abraham Lincoln. I was wearing my top hat then. And so how did I end up in Montana?
How did you get here?
How did a nice boy from Brooklyn, New York, end up in Montana?
Yeah. So in Crown Heights, in Brooklyn, is where I grew up. And the Chabad Lubavitch movement, led by the Chabad Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, he always encouraged everyone to do and give their best. And he said it in a motto. He would say, if you know Aleph, teach Aleph. Aleph, for those who don't know yet, is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And if you want to teach, you don't need to have a high level of stature or intellectual achievements. Whatever you know, whatever you can do, whatever you can give away. That's a message that's universal. Right. So when I was dating Shayna,
right? Were you a rabbi at that time?
I completed my certification, I think, right before our wedding. So when I was dating her, I was just finishing.
Mm-hmm.
And some people they date for 25 years, like in LA.
Right.
LA is probably 18 years, but like New York, 25 years, and then other parts of Brooklyn, 3 hours. So we're kind of in the middle. A couple of months.
Divide 25 years by in 3 hours. You get
a couple of months. I'm not sure who's better off, the 25-hour ones or the
right.
But so when I was dating Shayna, my wife, and we were looking, both of us were looking to see, are we both interested in giving our lives to helping other Jews and non-Jews in growing in spiritual pursuits and being better people. And that was something which we spoke about when we were dating.
Right.
Some of my friends, they want to see how committed their wives are, or some women want to see how committed their husbands are. So they'll say, I have an offer to go to Timbuktu. Are you ready to come?
Right.
So that would be a test to see how committed you are. But on a serious note, so me and Shayna we're already in dating, speaking about how we want to raise our kids and speaking about that we want to dedicate our lives to helping Jews around the world, like the Rebbe's message, to give whatever you can give.
And so you ended up in
Montana. I ended up in Montana.
You're not the only one in Montana. You have a colleague
That's
here.
right, Rabbi Chaim Brook, who lives in Bozeman.
So you've divided the state in half? Is that what it is? You got one half, he has the other half?
We actually, cut every settlement, and then we threw it into the air. Whatever landed on my side was for me.
But Rabbi, I have a question for you.
Just kidding.
You got to hope that the wind wasn't blowing, or else it'd all end on your side.
But you and Shayna were both raised Orthodox, correct?
Correct.
But not your whole family's not Orthodox. Is that correct?
Correct. Both of our parents. What's interesting is that if you go into the Chabad Lubavitch community, which is in Crown Heights, you find that so many of the people living there live Orthodox lives, but didn't live Orthodox lives their entire life. So my father, for example, was raised by a man, by my grandfather, who, although he was raised Orthodox, didn't continue that way. My mother was raised as a traditional Jew, I guess Orthodox, but not traditional. She kept a little bit of Shabbos, a little bit of kosher, and this was back
Chinese
in Morocco.
food on Christmas.
This is a Sephardim. They don't have that custom.
Right. Sunday night.
Right?
Yeah.
So the Moroccans have other stuff they do.
Right.
Right. His mom's from Morocco, right?
My father's from Brooklyn.
Right.
Right.
I've met both.
Yeah, that's right. So they each on their own path were inspired later on. So all my cousins weren't raised the same way I was raised. They were raised the way my mother was raised.
Well, when did you decide you wanted to be a man of the cloth, so to speak?
That's a great question, and not everyone in my community is as strong as I wish they would be, right, to say the least. And that's the way it is, and that's fine. Everyone is on their own journey in Judaism and in life, and we need to grow. I think I was about in 8th grade. I was just speaking to my friend about this. the other day. I was literally on crossroads, not knowing where I was going to go because I had friends who were clearly leading towards the other direction.
Right.
And there was anyway, long story short, I started reading a lot. And that's when I wasn't a good student until 8th grade. That's when I took life seriously. And when I started learning more about Judaism is when I decided I'm going to do this. And
so were you the first of your family to actually go to become Orthodox? No, your father was.
What I mean to say is, you asked when I decided to be a man of the cloth, meaning when did I personally
I see.
decide that I'm going to stick to the way my parents raised me.
I see.
Right? Because like I said, I have friends.
Oh, you mean it's not expected that you would be that way? That you would.
It's hoped for. Right?
It's
I
hoped
could say
for.
it's
Got
hoped
it.
for, but everyone.
You don't want to be the
there's
black
one
sheep.
thing that even a good Jewish mom can't take away from the Jewish boy is free choice.
Right.
I know women
That's a good
don't.
point.
I know Jewish moms don't think that, but
Right.
it's true.
So you have brothers and sisters.
I have 9 siblings.
And what do they do?
I have my oldest brother,
Yes.
who's a salesman. He sells cell phones.
Right.
And my
Where is
sister
this? Where does he sell cell phones?
in New Jersey.
Where?
The zip code
Yeah.
is it 59801 or is that Missoula?
That's Missoula.
Got
Right.
it. Okay.
He sells cell. And
Okay.
And
Oh.
so he sells cell phones. Yeah, he just had a boy just about a few months ago. So Mazel Tov. And my sister married an American, a French South African Israeli. Right, the father was he made airplanes for a living,
Right.
and he traveled from France to South Africa and then living in
so
Israel.
the point is, we don't have to go through all 9 of them, but none of them.
I was going to go through my nieces and nephews too.
Right, but none of them have chosen to become as religious as you have, or have chosen to go to school and study and become rabbis. Right.
So there's a difference with 24/7 giving Judaism,
Right.
or being religious yourself.
Right.
So if you want to just try to make that distinction, so all my siblings are Jewish.
Right.
And some of them are more or less observant.
Right, but you're
And
the
as
only
of
one
now,
who
I'm
went
the only one
who
who
went
you
to
would-
rabbinical school.
I'm not the only one who went to rabbinical
really?
school. Yes, my brothers have 2.
All of them?
Well, the one's younger and he's on his way.
Right. I met him.
Right, Shlomi. But really, there's 2 things in Judaism, Arnie. Like there's studying and there's living. I don't want to separate the 2 so separately. But even if you don't intend on being a rabbi, you should still. When I say you, Judaism wants that Jews be knowledgeable with Torah and Judaism. So even if you're not someone who's going to be a pulpit rabbi, we still want you to be as knowledgeable as
Sure.
the rabbi. And
Like
that's
some of your congregants are that way. Right?
I would
like
say-
Ed and some of your, but they're
everyone. I'll tell you this: every one of my congregants, and my congregant means God congregant. I don't.
Everybody.
Everybody is the potential of great intellectual Torah pursuit.
Well, that's what, and it's very interesting. The thing that I find fascinating about Judaism, especially out here, having come from back east, is what I really like about it is the discourse we have around philosophical things, around why life is this way. Why is something this way versus this way? I personally am not as enamored with all the traditions, like the laying of the tefillin and the prayer and the all that other stuff. But what I do like is the intellectual, philosophical side of it. And that's something that, if that's my door in, then that's good, right?
Absolutely, Judaism really wants that all Jews should be knowledgeable with Torah. The question is, let me ask the audience a question.
Because
Right? There are Jews and non-Jews listening to this. Why do we spend more hours to our history of another nation? And when I say another, I don't mean American. I don't mean our country. I mean other nations, right? People are studying, and less of our own. How come we don't know more about our own traditions? And I'm not putting down others. What I'm saying is we should increase ours. There's 2 ways. There was a story once with 2 boys. They're actually the son of a Rebbe. And the older brother, saw that the younger one was more gifted, and he was standing on a tree stump, and he pushed him off, and he says, "Look, I'm taller." So the father came, and in an eloquent, beautiful Rebbe style, he said, "Never push someone else down. If you want to be higher, stand on a bigger stool.
Right. And those are the great stories and lessons that you learn by studying the Torah and your history and the Talmud
Right.
and all
Right.
that.
Right.
What have you found in Montana? You've now been here how long?
2 years.
So what have you found? What you had a mission to come here. You're here. What have you found?
Arnie,
What's your assessment?
I'll say this honestly. I found you.
Yeah, right.
You found a lot of more than Arnie.
So
And I didn't want to be found, so you're lucky. But what have you found in general?
Well, putting just what I do aside, the Missoula it's unbelievable with the amount of people that come to Missoula, and it could be the same with other parts of Montana, but I say Missoula because I live in Missoula, that people come and they love Missoula. How many of the university students stay? It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know how many people come
Right.
and say, I love Montana. I can see myself moving here. And a lot of them not only see themselves moving here in thought, but in action too,
Right.
which is incredible. So Missoula is just a beautiful, beautiful place, and people here are wonderful. The difference here,
Very friendly.
very friendly. In New York,
By the way, I had this conversation the other day. New Yorkers are really friendly too. The problem is that because the top population is so crowded, nobody ever lets down their guard to be that initial sense of friendliness. You have to actually spend a little time with them to get there, but they are equally, if not more.
So I have a story to tell you.
absolutely.
So I'm back in New York on Long Island for the second time in 40 years since I was a kid. And there was a restaurant there takeout restaurant that's in the same place for 85 years.
If it didn't have salami there, it's not a restaurant.
It didn't have salami. And I hadn't been there for 40 years since I was a kid. So I walk in the door, and it looks exactly the same. And all of the foods are in the same place. The rice pudding's where the rice pudding always was. All the food's in the same place. It's like deja vu in real time. And I pick out the things that I remember from a kid, and I go to the checkout woman who's wearing, the same outfit that they wore when I was in there the last time. It was like a time warp. And I said to her, ma'am, it's been 40 years since I've been here. And it's so great that things haven't changed and it's the same. And we have all this history and tradition here.
Right.
And she goes, that's nice, $12. That's New York, right?
That's it.
That's a nice story. $12.
My wife on one of her first months here. She was buying something in one of the groceries, and the person helping Shayna purchase the stuff. She's like, "How are you today?" Shayna's like, "Good. How are things going?" Shayna, for a second, thought she was in New York. She didn't realize it was a serious question, so she
Right.
said, "Good." Thank God. She didn't actually answer. Now when I see people, they say, "How are you?" I say, "Thank God the weather's beautiful. How are you? My kids, my wife just gave birth."
Right. They
Having
want
a
to
good
really know.
day. Right.
We used to say when I first moved here 20 years ago that it
That's what I
takes you
love
an hour to go to the hardware store because you walk in, you know everybody, they ask you questions, you have a conversation, they want to know your opinion.
Right.
It's
people
very
are
nice.
people are sincerely friendly here.
It's like a shuttle in the middle of Montana, right?
That's it.
Let me
That's
take a quick ID. You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, proudly presented by our partners with Don Maddox and Glacier Sotheby's International Realty, specializing in luxury homes and ranches across western Montana. You can check out her properties at donmaddox.glaciersir.com.
So we're talking about food, which we always talk about in this show.
Right.
And
I just wanted to say for the listeners that I have a special treat that that I wanted to give you guys and to the audience. Now, it's not food to the audience, but it's I could promise you with some hesitation because I don't like to promise unknowingly, but that no one has ever given your audience the treat I'm about to give at some point in the show. But for you guys,
Yes.
I brought honey cake.
very good.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate
This
that.
is in honor of Rosh Hashanah.
Thank you so much.
So let me get back to the food
Sweet.
thing because we always talk about food, and
Sweet New Year.
And in most conversations when Jews get together, food is a topic of conversation. Where do you get kosher food here?
That's a great question.
He flies it in.
Right, flies it. Yeah.
So first of all, my little brother's coming to be the cantor for Rosh Hashanah, and guess what?
you.
We sent him a list of kosher stuff, salamis, pastramis. He's bringing some stuff. But on a what we do on a normal basis is every few months, me and Rabbi Brooke and Bozeman, we order from Minnesota. They truck it out here, and it's kind of scary because one time the truck pulled up on the highway. literally on the side of the highway. I shouldn't share this, but it's maybe they won't bother me for doing this illegal. But I pull up on the side of the highway, back up to the truck, and we throw out packages. In Bozeman, they had about 10 people going to one order once, and it was like 11 o'clock at night. The police showed up. Like, what are you guys smuggling in?
Contraband. Wait a minute. How big of a shipment do you get every couple of months?
2 to 3 pallets.
2 to 3 pallets.
Sure.
Of what?
You know how
Chicken?
many? One second. You know how many people we feed on a Shabbos?
How many? Give me statistics.
Around 20 people personally every Shabbos. Bozeman, I don't know.
For our lay listener, for what is Shabbos?
Shabbos is
Friday night.
Is Friday night and Saturday when we have our a celebration of remaining home and not working and enjoying the family life and just eating around family, no cell phones, and
so Rabbi, you'll potentially do 12 to 16 meals every quarter, right? And then you need another pallet to come out. So that's a lot of meals. That's almost,
absolutely.
That's
a lot.
Couple hundred meals.
So we have 1 million people in Montana. How many? What do you think the Jewish population is? Have you done a head count?
I could tell you. Really, I don't know. All I can tell you is that there's more than me and you think, because I constantly meet new people, and really, it's not only about the Jews of Montana. It's everyone wants inspiration. Everyone wants to be a better person. You know, today we're in the greatest society and the greatest wealth that mankind has ever reached. But our depression rate and suicide rate is not comprehensible. We have 11-year-olds.
Here, I know. It's ridiculous.
It's extremely sad.
We have a very high suicide rate in Montana in particular.
Why is that? That's because of lack of care or facilities to treat that? I mean, why would it be so high?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, we have, and I don't want to blame it on that particular area, but there are reservations here where the quality of life is and what it should be. Mm. You have a lot of people here in counties that have very few people. There's more counties in Montana with less than 3 people per square mile than almost anywhere else, and so you have isolation.
Sure.
You do know that the problem is maybe more so in Montana, but it's compared in the country, and it's really hard.
And, you talk about all of this wealth. You have an alarming increase in heroin use and serious opioid abuse.
People need to take the message home that every morning that we wake up, we need to know that is the greatest proof that God loves you.
Right.
The way that God says I love you is that you woke up today.
So if you don't wake up, He doesn't love you.
The way you matter. That's a real Jewish response, Arnie.
I know.
Thank you.
He's questioning.
I'm feeling back like good.
Yeah.
In yeshiva. So the point is that how do you know you matter? Because you woke up. The point is that no one exists for no reason because 2 people decide to have a child together. That's not why we exist. Right. We exist because God wants you to exist. You and I and every one of the listeners has something that they need to give to humanity, to their family, to the world. And we can never, ever feel that we don't matter. Right. So always feel proud with what we have.
So, Rabbi, majority of the American population is atheist. It is. It's large. Majority of Americans.
Yeah, and it's increasing the most rapidly.
Is there something about, in our case, in the Jewish, relying on history from 5,777 years ago that doesn't meet the needs of enough people? Is there something that needs to be done to change how we convey the message?
I think, just from my experience, what I see with people, I give a class once a week. And the class I give is a Bible class. And people who come, they say, I never realized that the Torah has so many personal and practical messages. If people, and like you said, Scott, before, that you appreciate the dialogue, the intellectual dialogue, and it's so true. There's so much content and information that the Torah has to give. Even if someone doesn't believe in God, there's so much to appreciate in the Torah.
Sure, but are things that need to be changed? For example, we're talking about questioning and dialogue and all these things, and it brings me back to when I was teaching in a classroom. But there are, contemporary women sometimes have a strong reaction to, ultra-Orthodox way in which women are treated based on something that was established 6,000 years ago. Does that have to be revisited or reinterpreted?
So one of the messages of the Torah is that it's called emes. Emes means true.
Right.
True means something which doesn't, in its core system, doesn't change. I want to say this: what people do think about Judaism and which is unfortunate, is that women are not respected well enough. Let me ask you a question. In Judaism, who passes on the Jewish gene to the children?
Sure.
Who?
The woman.
The woman. Imagine this. For 3,300 years, Judaism has been saying, if you're a rabbi and you don't have a Jewish wife, your children are not Jewish.
Right.
No matter how Jewish the father may be. You know how empowering that is to women? My point is this, and I think your wife, I was
pointing to Scott Richmond.
Yeah, I think, Scott,
on the radio.
Your wife has had some of this discussion with my wife. We're, in essence, Judaism really appreciates women and their qualities. If we make a distinction between what their roles are, doesn't mean that their respect is different. Just like we say, excuse me, sir, your kids aren't Jewish because of you. They're Jewish because of your lovely wife.
Right.
That's respectful, and in the most.
That is respectful in a biological way. But for example, as you know, women who, when they come into a home, an Orthodox home, are ushered into the kitchen, perhaps, and not seated with men. On airplanes, that Hasidim have difficulty sitting next to a woman on an airplane. Those things, I hate to use a crass term, but from a marketing perspective, if you're aren't very good examples of practicing what is being preached. If women are so equal and empowered, why are they treated in a way that is?
I actually don't believe women are equal. I believe they're better and they're greater. And the reason why
I'm not good way to deflect.
Next to you.
No, in honesty,
Yeah.
and just to answer your question,
right?
Just to answer your question, in truth, not everything that Jews do are Jewish.
Right.
So just because there's a stereotype doesn't mean that it's the correct thing. We have to always look, and that's why we always have to be open-minded. Even as an Orthodox person, I'm saying you have to be open-minded. We always want to see, is this something which some Jew adopted, or is it something that Judaism adopted? There's a distinction, because Jews sometimes, we take things the wrong way. So we always want to look at the book. We always want to look at the Torah, and there's not one book. There's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of stuff to read, and that's really the foundation of Torah, of Judaism, is the Torah. So, I want to make this point, which is crucial. As soon as we decide to change core values and to say women play different roles than they do, then in just another 30 years, another 100 years, Judaism will not look like Judaism anymore. And the reason why I say, you can say, well, that's what it will decide in 100 years. But if we want Judaism to remain and to stick, we want to keep to our core values.
Well, there is Reform Judaism, and there's other departments of the same religion, and they don't necessarily follow those same core values.
Right.
Correct.
And does that make them any less Jewish?
God forbid.
No, right?
God forbid.
No.
No.
So I mean,
you
have a tough message to communicate to women, just because modern day women, who are advocating for equal salaries and equal treatment and equal education, and we have a woman that will probably become president of the United States.
You know that
God willing.
You're gonna pray on Rosh Hashanah.
I pray every day for that.
So, right, I saw a friend from a message from a friend who posted on Facebook. He says, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, everyone's invited at Chabad.
That's true.
Right.
Right, and everyone knows that about Chabad. Even women know that. I know women who told and who said, I am never coming to Berry's house. I'm never coming to Chabad because of the partition. And once they come, their perspective is different.
Why? Tell me why.
You have to ask them why.
Okay.
But my
what
point
do you
is,
think?
I think that the stereotype
You're listening to what
is
you know.
You are listening to What Do You Know?
So tell me, what do you know?
Tell you know.
Come on.
So the stereotype is a stereotype, and that's what it is. It's a misconception. And when people really look into not mine, in Shayna's life, they see a Jewish woman, and they see, wow, this is the way they're treated. This is who they are. She's the backbone of our center.
Right.
She is.
She is right?
She
Right,
is.
and
She's
the
the
mother
backbone
to
of-
your 3 children.
And the mother to my 3 children. Thank God.
Yes.
And when we say...
So what is the role then of the man? If the woman is more important in religion, so where do you and your brothers and your dad and me and Arnie and the minion come in?
That's very good. You know why in Judaism, this is a very, very good question. You know why in Judaism men have more mitzvahs? When I say a mitzvah means a commandment, more rituals. We have the tefillin to put, the tzitzis to put, the yarmulke to put. We go to minyan. You don't find that women are counted in the minyan, that they very active. When I
Right.
say this, I'm talking in traditional Judaism. You don't find it. Why? And you know why? Because in a nutshell, women are and men need to become. Women are and men need
They're
to
further
become.
along.
We are
we always
such
knew that.
men.
How does the Chabad deal with transgender? I'm curious. I'm really serious about that. How do you deal with that?
Well, everyone who, like I said, everyone who comes to us knows that no matter what their personal lives are, they are welcome at Chabad.
Sure.
So people, I know gay people I'm very friendly with that are Jewish.
Right.
Lesbian people that I'm very friendly with, and they're very friendly with. I just want to say, we don't look. That's the beauty about what people say about Chabad, not me. What people say about Chabad is that they're so unjudgmental. They don't judge you for your cover. They don't look, oh, you're a stereotype gay, lesbian, homosexual, whatever it may be.
Right.
They don't.
So
You don't keep Shabbos, you don't keep kosher, you don't do this, you don't know that.
Right.
They don't judge.
Well, everyone's invited is what you're saying.
Everyone's invited, but everyone
It's like the
feels
Hotel
welcome.
California.
So I guess-
It's not
I guess-
only a word.
It's like the Hotel California. You're invited, but you
It's
never
not
get
only
out.
a word. It's an experience. People
Well-
come, they actually feel welcome.
Well, so then I guess the answer is if someone of trans comes in, it's how they identify that allows them to be on this side of the partition or that side of the partition, correct?
Well, I'll tell you this. How much time when you come to Chabad, are you on any side of the partition? 100th of the time?
Not even. I mean, I actually,
So I'll say this.
well, at William's bar mitzvah, which the rabbi officiated, there was that, right? There was the
That
partition,
partition, the mechitza.
right? Was that was pretty, that was an
Did
extended period of time.
Did people feel totally
It was
off?
weird.
Not you, the non-Jews.
No,
I know the Jews
The
felt off.
non-Jews didn't know any better. They didn't know the difference. But the Jews that were from more reformed or conservative backgrounds thought it was strange.
Yeah,
I
everything
told
that's
you that,
different
though.
is strange. Absolutely. Everything that's different
Sure.
seems strange.
So let me ask you this: Judaism's been around almost
Good show.
6,000 years, right?
Abraham. No, we're celebrating Adam. Adam wasn't Jewish.
Okay, well, a long time.
3,300.
Okay, 3,300 years. The Shabbat Lubavitcher movement's only about 250 years old, right? So it's one of the newest movements among all of the the groups in that make up the full spectrum of Judaism. What happened 250 years ago to create this divergence?
That is a great question, Arnie. Thank you for asking it. This is the way I will answer your
path out.
question. Judaism believes that at certain times we need to pull out the jewels. We need to pull out the secrets. What does Chabad mean? Chabad means Chachma bin Adas, to study and to understand more and more. If you look at Judaism, before 250 years, even those who studied Kabbalah and Hasidus, which is what Chabad does, what we study, that philosophy that you love, that Scott loves, and that Arnie loves too, he just doesn't know it yet. So that is, what's the difference? It's elaborative. It expounds. It doesn't give you a snippet. It gives you juicy information and a plenty
Right.
of it. So we, after certain periods of time, the Jewish people back in Russia where we primarily lived, and in Europe, we were literally downtrodden. The Baal Shem Tov came, who was a few generations before Chabad, but came to uplift the people, to give them feeling and meaning. And Chabad took it to the next level of taking ideas of Torah. This is not new. Taking ideas of Torah and focusing on you understanding it.
Right.
That's the Chabad idea, that you should understand. That's what we're big into study.
And Lubavitch was actually the name of a town.
Correct. Lubavitch is the name of the town. and it was only we joined. The name Chabad was the original name, but then after they settled in Lubavitch for so many years, they called it Chabad Lubavitch. And Lubavitch is a Ukrainian and Russian word, and Lubav means to love.
Love,
Sure.
The town of love.
And let me ask you, from the Chabad people,
Right.
are they Lubav?
Yes.
Are they full of Lubav? Come on, are they full of Lubav? Yes.
Well, that's one of the things.
Let me ask a question. Switching gears for a second.
You know the story.
He's very bright. He knows everything. You can't. He doesn't ask a question he doesn't know the answer to.
Okay, I don't want the show to end before
Hold on.
I give the gift to the
we're not,
audience.
No, I want to switch gears for a second. You've been here for 2 years, okay, and tell me what it's like assimilating into the general Missoula population. What are the things that you find most appealing about Montana/Missoula, and what are the things that you find the most challenging? There has to be both. You cannot answer this just answering one, not the other.
Do I sound like a diplomat?
No,
Yes.
but I know you, and you're going to focus on the positive. And I want to know.
I take that as a compliment.
Yes.
Well,
Okay,
that's good.
so
yeah.
what should I start with?
Start with the negative.
The negative. So the challenges, negative is not challenge. No, that's not, challenges aren't negative.
Right, but just start
Challenges
the
are
challenges.
opportunities.
Call the challenges.
So the challenges that Shane and I and the kids have is we want to be able to give and instill in our children and our family kosher food and kosher values and kosher lifestyle. It is challenging with still young children in the house not having the education that we want to give them. So it's difficult for us to throw them in a center, which are for 2-year-olds that might feed them non-kosher ice cream. We don't want the non-kosher ice cream.
So you're homeschooling them.
We are homeschooling them for now. We hope to
Have a
hire
preschool?
help.
What about
Even I don't know if we hope to have a preschool, but for certainly in the near future, for my family, we're going to hire help to sit.
Sure.
We'll
Okay.
have someone from Israel or someone from New York or from Los Angeles or Florida come in.
Those are big centers of Judaism, just so we're clear.
what about anti-Semitism? What have you experienced here?
I haven't had many incidences. I've seen just a few. In general, the stereotype of Missoula and the whitefish, because of the history here, seems that people are afraid, meaning people are concerned for me and for Jews in Montana. I don't see a lot of it personally. I've had an incident where my menorah was slashed. When I say that, it was on the outside of my car, and someone cut the rope. So I definitely know that people are. Maybe it's just one person. I hope it's just one person in Missoula.
Sure.
But it's possible. And really, anti-Semitism is also a lack of knowledge. Anti-Semites think they have a stereotype of what a Jew is. And all we need to give is that knowledge. Of course, if someone does something wrong, we have to give them the right stuff too. But when I say we need to educate the young generation, what goes on in some countries is
it's a lack of exposure, it's a lack of experience, and it's the inability, because there isn't a large section of the population that has experience with Jews, that they perpetrate stereotypes. I mean, I've heard dozens of times in my 20 years here things like, well, I Jewed that guy down on the price. I mean, that's a classic thing that you hear around here, which is a stereotype that, that's inappropriate.
Right. No, expressions are one thing, right? Expressions are one thing, and people actually don't know. People I've met Jews in New York who said, "Oh, you live in Montana? I visited Montana, and someone came to me and checked if I had horns on." Right. So, it's true that some people don't even know.
Well, it's their first exposure
what a Jew is, and they don't understand that a Jew is just like a regular human being. But everyone needs to, including myself and including you guys, everyone needs to appreciate humankind. That's what we need. We need to have respect. Respect means boundaries.
Let's circle back though. So you talked about some of the challenges. What are the positives? Give me 2 positives.
2 positives is that the lifestyle of a Brooklyn Jewish kid is so low compared to the lifestyle of a Jewish Missoula kid.
Right.
Just for example, you cannot play tennis in Brooklyn unless you take a car and you're in traffic for 50 minutes. You pay membership to the club. You cannot. It's just you can't play
Too
tennis.
expensive.
It's just a
It's
whole
a
headache.
class.
You're 10 years old. Who's going to drive you?
It's true.
You have to have someone drive
Who's
you.
going to give you a club membership?
gonna-
and
exactly.
Pay $60 an hour for a court.
Exactly.
But here,
You go to Bonner Park, you go to the university, you go to anywhere. There's literally free tennis courts. All you need, tennis,
for free.
and it's all for free. But it's also the distance. It's not only right. Understand in New
Right.
York, everything is farther away. Over here, I'm very excited to give my kids skiing lessons. That they're going to know how to ski. The first time I skied was in Australia. I was 19 years old. A deprived Jew. 19 years old
Right.
skiing. You know what I feel like?
Here you start when you're 5.
Were you studying in Australia? Is that what you were doing there?
I was a semi-counselor. Yeah.
Listen, I want to do a quick ID, and we're going to wrap it up with a final segment. You're listening to What Do You Know with Scott and Arnie. Our guest is Rabbi Berry Nash, and we are presented by Dawn Maddox and Glacier Sotheby's International Realty. Back after this with our final segment. All right, we're back with What Do You Know, presented by Dawn Maddox and Glacier Sotheby's International Realty.
So for our listeners, there's a couple of terms I want to clarify so they can be, clear about it, about the Torah and the Talmud. The Torah is the written law that came down from Mount Sinai, right? And the Talmud is the oral law. So if you just want to, because those are the two kind of linchpins of the educational and learning experience. Will you just take another minute and maybe elucidate more about Torah and Talmud?
Sure. The way I would give that distinction would be in two different terms.
Okay.
They would both be called Torah.
Right.
Everything is Torah. When I say everything that's Torah is Torah, even if it's the oral law.
Okay.
The way you would describe it is the written Torah or the oral Torah. Now, the Talmud is not the only thing that's oral, which you're right, it is the oral Torah, but it's not the only thing that's oral. There's Kabbalah that's oral. There's the Medrash that's oral. There's the Shulchan Aruch that's oral. So there's the Mishnah, the Talmud that is the Talmud. There is so much Torah that is oral law. What is clearly defined as the written is clear. It's the 5 books or the 24 books of the Tanakh. That is clear to be the written Torah. Everything else that is legit and legitimate Torah is the oral law. And they both have the same stature.
Okay, good. I just wanted our listeners to know that. So today marks a 9-day period which ends with Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. And so what's coming up for you over the next couple of weeks that our listeners might be interested in?
Well, I'd like to say that anyone who wants to get in touch with me, just check out our website, Missoula.com.
He's pointing to me.
Yeah,
the poster boy for that.
Yes.
And we have updated information all the time for Rosh Hashanah.
Right.
For
You're
Yom
on
Kippur,
Facebook, too.
And on Facebook, too. And Sukkot, for the holiday of Sukkah. And as a treat for what we have, the Rosh Hashanah coming up.
Right.
Tomorrow, October 3rd, it's the most important thing. After, right, it's important to pray. We got to pray for a good year because we're going to rock this year, the best one yet. And we want to pray for that. But in addition to that, and more importantly, we want to make sure we hear the shofar. And I invite everyone who has this mitzvah from God, this command, anyone from the Jewish faith, to come and listen to the shofar blowing. And I'm just going to give you a little taste now.
Give us a
Before
taste.
you do it, explain what the symbolic purpose
what does
of
it look
blowing
like?
the shofar mean.
Yeah, blowing the shofar has many ideas. And one simple idea about the shofar is the idea of a cry. We on Rosh Hashanah, we're sincere. We're trying to reconnect. And when I say reconnect, it's not like we're disconnected, but just to strengthen our connection with God and with Judaism. So we want to, sometimes words are just not expressive enough.
Right.
So we need that sigh, that cry, and that's the expression of the shofar. That's one of the ideas. But there's so much in the shofar that's just simply not enough for even a program.
All right, let
like
me just
What Do You
describe
Know?
the setting. Describe the setting. The rabbi is moving away from the microphone. He's got a ram's horn in his mouth. It's about 10 inches long.
You think you're Howard Cosell?
I want to paint a picture for the audience. And he's got his rabbi on, his kippot, and he will now blow the shofar.
There are sheep coming from every direction now.
That was beautiful.
No, that was very nice, Rabbi. Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank you. I want to give, that was the gift for the audience. My gift to your show
Yes.
is this book called The Secret of Chabad. You asked me so many questions
Yes.
that I didn't have enough time to give you all the answers.
Right.
Here's a book that's recently published by David Eliezri, who's a Chabad rabbi himself, and he gives you unbelievable information about how Chabad is the most successful movement in Judaism today. And it's actually incredible, and it really teaches entrepreneurs and CEOs and managers of companies a new way of approaching life. It's actually incredible. So this is for you guys. Please don't tear it in half. Just share it, and you can read it
Sure.
once.
Thank you.
We'll take turns reading
you,
from
and
it.
thank you
Thank
for
you
the
very much,
gifts.
Rabbi.
And
You're
so
welcome.
Rabbi Berry Nash was our guest on What Do You Know? And Rabbi, just for anyone else who's listening, whether they are Jewish or not Jewish, how do they get in touch with you? How do they find out more information about the Chabad?
Missoula.YouTube. That's personal. That's if you want to contact me. If you want to learn more about Chabad, Chabad.org. Chabad is spelled Chabad. That's Chabad, Chabad.org. It's the most popular Jewish educational website.
Are
Check
people
it out.
invited over to your home? Like, do you ever do an open house or anything to talk about, like, this is what it means a Jewish home looks like?
I think we should.
That's an interesting idea.
Sure.
We should meditate on that, but it is an interesting idea because you've provoked a lot of folks today and given them a lot of food for thought.
Yeah.
No
I think
pun
you
intended.
should blow the shofar and see who shows up.
Anyway, this was great. This was What Do
Thank
You
you,
Know?
Rabbi. And,
Thank you, Arnie.
And
thank
Happy
you,
New
Scott.
Year. Happy
New
healthy
Year. Shana
New
Tova
Year.
to every one of us.
Happy
Shana
New Year.
Tova.
Arnie, I want to thank our sponsor today, Dawn Maddox of Glacier Sotheby's International Realty. What do you know? I'll see you next Sunday.
See you next Sunday.
Happy New Year, Arnie.
Thank you.